So currently road tripping on the way to Yosemite and a session in San Francisco, and I just taught at a workshop, taught about film in Oregon. So one of the things that I'm doing right now is I have these Zeiss Touit lenses, T-O-U-I-T. They first came out really early on in the Fujifilm system. I always was kind of interested in them and never tried, and Zeiss was kind enough to send some over for me to check out. So I'm gonna be doing some testing on these in some pretty cool little spots.
So in use, this is a pretty cool lens. It's definitely, an earlier lens, but out of the Zeiss models that I have used, I was pretty impressed. You can see that this front section is pretty large, while the, middle section here isn't as large. If you take off this enormous lens hood, then it makes it a lot more compact, which is what I did most of the time. Obviously, that meant that there were definitely times where light was getting in towards the sides, which not ideal. But that being said, it definitely is more usable and easier to carry around without that giant lens hood. It also has 67mm filter threads, which is the same as a bunch of the other lenses that I have for my A7 IV and my FX3. Now, my main kind of thing to compare this to would be the Fujifilm 14mm f2.8, as well as, and I will get it really quick, the Viltrox 13mm f1.4. So while these both have a 67mm filter thread, the Viltrox is significantly larger, and it's just a new lens that just came out versus this lens that has been out for a long time. You can definitely see that there is a pretty substantial difference. The front is relatively the same size, but the rest of it is definitely different. I wouldn't say that this is that much lighter than the Viltrox, but just because the Viltrox is so much taller, this feels a lot more balanced on a camera than the Viltrox does. And I know that some people can get on here and kind of correct me on this, but from my experience at least, and from my understanding, the Distagon design of lenses has always been really, really great. And I will say that this is absolutely one of those lenses that makes it into that really, really great category. You obviously are sort of limited at 2.8, where, like this Viltrox is 13mm at 1.4. For weddings, events, things like that, having all that extra stops of light is probably going to be worth it, to be honest. But this, for kind of the use case that I was using it for sort of like travel, landscape, all that kind of stuff, did a really, really fantastic job. And I was very, very surprised at how well this thing both rendered in terms of sharpness, in terms of chromatic aberration, in terms of distortion and vignetting. I'm not sure if they just put together a really, really good lens profile, or the lens itself is that well corrected. Honestly, that part doesn't really matter to me because all I care about is the end result. I know that some people get all up in arms about how much, correction that different lenses or whatever can do either in camera or in software. All that matters to me is the resulting image at the end of the day. And just by turning on auto profile corrections on this thing, I was very, very just not necessarily surprised, but very pleased with the images. I would say that most of the times I would be shooting at f5.6 normally for a landscape type of thing. I will say the focus and aperture ring are like interesting. It's definitely kind of in that modern Zeiss vibe to it. The aperture ring is definitely a little bit more loose than I would hope for. Now, this is a demo lens. I don't know how many hundreds of people Zeiss may have sent this to over the years since this has been available, so maybe it's one of those things that wore down over time because it's pretty easy to move the aperture ring and then get stuck on an aperture you weren't necessarily hoping to use. So all that to say, I think this lens is really great. I probably wouldn't buy it new considering its age and the other options available, but there are definitely, a ton of these, I'm sure, out there and available on the market. Again, you just have that Zeiss name and those Zeiss legacy and optics and everything like that built into here. Distagon design, f2.8. Really don't really like the lens hood, but I mean, what are you gonna do? It's huge, but it's a lens hood for like an 18mm equivalent. So I will say though that one of the things that aesthetically I'm not really that big of a fan of is just when they write, like Touit 12 or 2.8/12, like, I don't know, put that somewhere that's a little less obvious, I guess, or like less just like in your face. Again, not that that makes any sense in the optical performance or makes a difference, but just something that I think about because I'm a nerd about those kind of things. So all that to say, thanks so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I will try to get to them. I also have a review coming out on the 32 1.8 lens. That video will probably obviously come out in the next week or two. So if you have questions about that one as well, leave them below. Subscribe if you aren't already, and then if you want to see more Fujifilm content, you can check it out here, and then you can watch more videos about the lenses that I review up here, and I will see you all on the next one.